Hey, what's up guys, Totallydubbed here, and today I'm doing a video review on the AOC PDS241. Now this is a relatively special monitor because it's been designed by Studio F.A. Porsche. For those that know of that company, it's the guys who are behind the Porsche brand in terms of the cars, and these are designers who are from the Porsche factory designing various sorts of products. Now, the F.A. Porsche do a variety of different products, and often they are quite expensive because of their design. Now, I'll get into that in just a bit in terms of build quality. So you might be wondering, what is its price tag? Well, actually, it's relatively affordable. The 24-inch variant, which is the variant I have in front of me, can be found for £189 and $240 in the US. The PDS271, which is a 27-inch variant, can be found for $259 in the UK and $330 in the US. Links will be in the description below once I get buy links, because this monitor hasn't been officially released yet, and it's the 30th of May 2017 as I'm making the video. Now, in terms of specs, you might be wondering what you get for that money. Now, it's got a full HD resolution, so 1920 by 1080. It's got a 24-inch panel, which is actual size is 23.8 inch. It has a 4 milliseconds quoted response time. It has a 16:9 aspect ratio and runs at 60 Hz. Now, interestingly enough, it's got a single HDMI input, and I'll get into that in just a bit in terms of its build quality, because it's rather unique at the way it does it. I should also mention that you can play back audio through the monitor, however that's via a 3.5mm jack that can be found on the bottom right hand side and underneath the monitor. You won't have any speakers, and that is also due to its design because it's very flat. Now, I just want to quickly mention in terms of competition that it has got quite a bit of competition and does sit at a higher end of the scale in terms of pricing. Normally, a 1080p 24-inch IPS monitor can be found between £100 and £180, so therefore the Porsche design monitor is relatively expensive. Now, let's talk about the build quality. Now, there's quite a bit I want to talk about the build quality, but first let's talk about how thin it is. Now, most monitors now are very thin, but this one is extraordinarily thin. As you can probably see on the video right there, it is extremely thin, so therefore it looks very nice on a desk. Now, interestingly enough, the Porsche design monitor has a different sort of bracket. The way it's holding up the monitor from the back, it looks quite intriguing. However, this does have its flaws. Now, bear in mind I've got a press sample, so it could have been abused. However, what I noticed as soon as I've got it out the box was the fact that the monitor was just a little bit skewed. I actually took a ruler out and measured it from one end to the other, and I had about just under 9 centimeters on this end to well under 8.5 centimeters on this end. So it goes down, it's slanted. This can be due to the fact that it's been abused, but it does raise the question because of the way the bracket is made. There's less support on that side of the monitor, and therefore it is going to be leaning more on that side. There's no other thing that you can tighten up over here, or sort of a bolt, so that for you to actually make sure that it's tightened. So do bear that in mind. Now, the monitor has only got tilt controls, which is relatively basic. You've got no height adjustments or any pivoting or any sorts due to the design of the monitor. It's not a massive deal given the fact that IPS monitors have got fantastic viewing angles, but it is something to bear in mind. Now, what is the most interesting about the design of the monitor and the build quality of the monitor is the way it handles its display. Now, interestingly enough, you've got a cable over here which connects at the bottom of this stand. That's a mini HDMI port which filters through to this little box unit over here. I was told by AOC that all the processing of the monitor is done in this box, whereas normally of a monitor you'll find over here, and the power brick is just for power. This is a very different design, and it's quite intriguing at the way that AOC have done it. Essentially, you're just having a HDMI port here going straight to the cable and being routed in, so that you have a very clean setup, and this little pod over here can be dropped down to the floor, or can be hanging from the desk without it actually breaking loose from its connection due to its design. So as I said before, it's got a single HDMI 1.4 input, so you've got no other inputs that you can use. However, HDMI is pretty much a standard input now, and given the fact that a lot of iGPUs or so say motherboards or even GPUs have HDMI, it's a good choice of a port, so I have no sort of complaints. Now moving on to the monitor itself, at the front of the monitor, you'll be able to see that it's got a very low bezel. In fact, it's got absolutely no bezels on the side, which means that the monitor is small, compact, but is not distracting due to thick bezels on the side. This is great in terms of looking at the monitor on a daily basis or putting it in, say, an office for it to look quite nice. Now, the monitor has a silver bezel at the bottom, which is the AOC branded bezel, and it looks quite nice alongside its stand. Its stand is sturdy, but remember what I said about it kind of leaning in kind of this way, going down, just due to the way the stand is made. Now, the OSD is extremely basic and is definitely a flaw of this monitor. If I just reduce the EV of my my camera so you guys can see, you'll be able to see how this OSD works. Now, the way it works is simply by a one-button control. There's no sort of joysticks or anything, but what you do is you cycle through, and once you cycle through, you leave the button to be recognized, and then you can adjust it. Once you've adjusted it, it will flash and confirm that it's done. This sort of design is nice, however, the options that you've got are very limited. You've got brightness, contrast, volume, overdrive, and you've got the language settings, and finally you've got low blue light mode. Other than that, you've got no color settings that you can choose from, or any color temperatures that you can cycle through. This is a massive flaw to me because, in all honesty, most monitors have an RGB control, and I would have much liked that over a one-button design. So it's a little bit of a shame that how this monitor has been designed in that respect. Now, moving on from that, you've got the blue LED button over here, blue LED light, that cannot be disabled, so do bear that in mind. As I said before, there's a 3.5mm jack that can be found on the bottom right hand side and underneath the monitor. Now, looking at the quality of the monitor. Now, the panel at first glance really didn't look nice, and that's simply due to the colors. I just wasn't impressed by the colors that were shown, and even though it has an IPS panel in there, I just wasn't impressed by how it looked. It just didn't look too nice, and it looked a little bit washed out. Colors also looked just a little bit off. In comparison to other IPS monitors or even PLS panels out there, this really didn't pop to me. It was good, don't get me wrong, but it didn't pop. And that popping color is pretty much what I would expect from a monitor that doesn't have any RGB controls and is relatively expensive for an IPS panel, and more so is a monitor that supposedly comes out the box factory calibrated. Don't get me wrong, when I put it through a calibrator, I did notice its good sRGB color space. It got a gamut coverage of 98% with 77% at Adobe RGB and 83% at DCI-P3. However, the gamut volume skewed the results with 117% at sRGB, meaning colors were just a little bit all over the shop, and that is pretty much what I noticed in real life. So due to not having those color controls, and just generally by looking at the monitor, I just wasn't that impressed. Over here in this image, you should be seeing really dark blues on the top right hand side and a solid white point over here by the fireworks, but that is not the case. Cycling through some other images, this image should be really popping out in sort of color, but unfortunately feels a bit washed out. It's almost like this monitor is a very good TN panel or a very budget IPS panel, rather than being a fantastic IPS panel that you would expect from an expensive IPS monitor. So unfortunately, that is the case with the panel. It didn't really excite me in terms of colors. What about gaming performance? Now, I'm not going to launch a game because it's pretty much pointless, because it's not a gaming monitor. What I did notice, however, when I launched up Counter-Strike is its input lag is relatively high, and even though when I boosted up its overdrive to a strong setting, response time was still slow. So response time wasn't great, especially with overdrive disabled, and input lag was high, even if I was with overdrive enabled or disabled, and to be honest, that shouldn't affect the input lag, but input lag was relatively high. So if you're a casual gamer or going to be playing MOBA games or something like that, it's fine, but if you're going to be playing any sort of FPS game or racing games, then this monitor won't be for you. There was not that much ghosting or inverse ghosting, but still not a monitor I would choose for gaming. So overall, what do I think of the monitor? In all honesty, I can't really see myself recommending it. Yes, it's got a beautiful design, and yes, the stand is cool, and yes, it's innovative in terms of how it routes the cable, but it's not a monitor that I would say, yes, go out and buy it over some other monitors out there. There are cheaper monitors out there that have full RGB controls, or look better, or even a TN panel that does better for gaming, and is really color accurate, would be a better choice, at least in my opinion. Plus, it's relatively expensive, and therefore the only thing you're really paying for is a Porsche name behind it. How much does that matter to you is up to you to decide. Anyway guys, I've been Totally Dubbed. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. Make sure you give it a like, comment, subscribe, and let me know in the comments below what you think. Take care guys, Totally Dubbed out. Bye bye.